Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a really specific, honestly fascinating document that zeroes in on an ancient biblical passage.
Right. Specifically, Hosea chapters 7 and 8.
Exactly. We're looking at how a text from thousands of years ago tries to diagnose human psychology in a way that, well, the original author claims is completely relevant for you today.
And it uses one of the most visceral, unexpected metaphors you could find. I mean, it's a spiritual critique wrapped up in a literal culinary disaster.
A total disaster. But before we jump into that, I do need to set some quick ground rules for you, the listener.
Yeah, that's really important here.
Right, because the source material we are unpacking today is religious and theological in nature. So our approach in this deep dive is to impartially report on the content.
Hmm.
We are just exploring the ideas, the metaphors, the logic the author presents. We want to make it entirely clear right up front that we're not endorsing these viewpoints or taking sides on any theological claims.
Exactly. We are just your guides here, trying to convey these really thought-provoking concepts that are contained in the text.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to imagine you're firing up the grill. You throw on a thick, juicy burger steak. And you have a very specific expectation of how that's going to end, right?
Oh, absolutely. You want that perfect caramelized sear on the outside and a nice, safe, warm center inside.
The universal golden rule of cooking meat. You must apply the heat evenly or, the entire meal is compromised.
Yeah, otherwise it's inedible.
Right. But imagine someone serves you this burger and you look down at your plate. The top side is completely incinerated. I mean, it is burned, black, dry, bitter, practically turned to charcoal. You can't even cut into it.
Ugh, terrible.
And then you try to flip it over. The bottom side is completely raw. It is soft, cold, undercooked, and honestly, completely unsafe to eat.
Right, so if you try to take a bite, you are getting the worst of both worlds.
Exactly. The bitterness of ash and the danger of raw meat. Nobody in their right mind is eating that.
It is an absolute failure of process. It lacks attention, it lacks care, and it's entirely incomplete. And believe it or not, that striking, frankly gross image of ruined food is the anchor for our entire discussion today.
Yeah, it's wild.
This ancient document uses that exact metaphor to diagnose a condition of spiritual inconsistency.
The core of the document actually revolves around a single sharp declaration from Hosea chapter 7, verse 8. It says, Ephraim is a cake not turned, which is where we get our burned and raw burger analogy.
Right, a cake cooked on an open fire.
Exactly. And the source explains that Ephraim represents the northern kingdom of ancient Israel. But I have to ask, why use this jarring, weirdly specific metaphor? Why look at an entire nation and declare them to be a poorly baked loaf of bread?
Well, what's fascinating here is the historical and social context that the source provides to explain that critique. The text states that Ephraim mingles himself among the people.
Okay, mingles how?
To understand why that matters, we have to look at the geopolitical pressure cooker of the ancient Near East. The northern kingdom of Israel was caught between these massive, expanding empires like Assyria and Egypt. Out of fear and really just a desire for political survival, they began making treaties, adopting foreign policies, and crucially, integrating the pagan religious practices of their neighbors.
So they were essentially hedging their bets, trying to keep their ancestral traditions alive while simultaneously bowing to the cultural pressures around them.
Yeah, that is the heart of the critique.
Hmm.
The document notes that Israel didn't fully reject their God. It wasn't like a clean break.
Right, it rarely is.
Exactly. Outwardly, they were still maintaining their traditional religious practices, offering sacrifices, going through the motions. But inwardly, their allegiance was totally fractured. Their loyalty was compromised and their love was diluted.
So they were trying to appease everyone at once. And in the process, they lost their core identity. They became the cake not turned.
Perfectly said.
One side, like the outward, public-facing side, appeared cooked. It looked acceptable to anyone walking past the temple. But the other side, the hidden reality, remained completely raw and neglected.
And the author of our source argues that this state of being is far more dangerous than simply being completely raw.
Wait, really? Why is it more dangerous?
Because when a society or an individual is entirely cold to a concept, they at least know where they stand. But when you are half-baked, you possess this illusion of completion. You carry the outward markers of devotion, which masks the internal rot.
Man, that cognitive dissonance is wild. It's not about someone who is completely apathetic or completely zealous. It's about someone who is both simultaneously and therefore entirely uneven.
Right.
But what really stands out in the source material is that it refuses to leave this as just a history lesson. It explicitly pivots from ancient Israel to the modern reader.
It does. It frames this as a living message about the dangers of a divided heart today.
It brings that 2,000-year-old mirror right up to the face of the contemporary individual and asks, are you a cake not turned?
And to answer that, the document maps out three very specific modern scenarios to diagnose this condition. We could call them the three masks of the half-baked believer.
Let's walk through these because the progression is really intriguing. The text starts with the macro level, what I'll call the calendar divide.
Oh yeah, the Sunday versus Monday issue.
Exactly. The author describes a person who is incredibly devoted on Sundays. They attend their place of worship, they participate, they listen. In that specific setting, for those couple of hours, they appear completely cooked.
The heat of their devotion is totally visible.
Right. But the moment Monday morning rolls around, that dedication evaporates. They blend seamlessly into the world's patterns on Monday.
The text argues that their reverence, which burns so brightly on Sunday, it's nowhere to be found in the boardroom on Tuesday. Their financial priorities and ethical boundaries suddenly mirror people who possess no spiritual framework at all.
It's like extreme code switching. You wear one persona for the weekend and a completely different one for the work week. But compartmentalizing by the day of the week is just the start. The author argues this gets even more insidious on a micro level. This brings us to the second scenario. The audience divide.
This one cuts much deeper, I think, because it targets the performative aspect of human nature. The document describes a huge discrepancy between public performance and private reality.
Like having loud, passionate prayers in public at church.
Exactly. The people around them likely admire their fervor, thinking they're a pillar of the community. But the true state of the cake is revealed when the audience goes home.
Right. Behind closed doors.
Yeah, once this person is in private, with their family, the facade crumbles. They fade into impatience, a rising temper, and worldly distraction. The devotion was entirely dependent on having spectators.
So the public side is scorched by the heat of performance, while the private domestic side is completely raw. That is rough.
It is. Which logically brings us to the third scenario, the most subtle one, the habit divide.
Right, because you could argue the first two divides are just products of social pressure, but what happens when you strip the audience away entirely?
Exactly. The author describes someone who actually maintains a diligent private practice. Every morning, they have their devotional and prayer time. And in those 15 minutes, they are genuinely attentive.
But the disconnect happens the moment they close the book. Those practices have zero influence on their daily actions and decisions.
Right. The private meditation doesn't touch the emails they send or the anxieties they carry. It's treated like a task on a to-do list. You check the box and move on.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Isn't the text just describing modern compartmentalization?
Right.
I mean, we are trained to put different parts of our lives into airtight containers. Work goes in the work bucket, family in the family bucket. Why does the author view this as so uniquely dangerous?
That tension is exactly what makes the document so compelling. The expert analysis here connects this to the text's warning about subtle danger. Because there is enough outward form, going to church, doing morning devotions, a person might think they are fine.
The illusion of completion again.
Exactly. But beneath the surface, the loyalty is divided. The text argues that a heart that is only half devoted is entirely unacceptable. When you compartmentalize your core values, you trick yourself into believing you're whole.
You look at the seared side of the steak and declare dinner is ready, completely ignoring the center.
Yeah, and from the theological perspective of the text, genuine faith cannot be a compartment. It must be the foundation. A divided heart isn't just a mild inconsistency, it's a critical failure of loyalty.
So if compartmentalization and outward-only religion are the symptoms of being half-baked, how does this source suggest one actually finishes the cooking process?
The text offers a very specific prescription, and it emphasizes something that might surprise readers. The goal is not absolute perfection.
Oh, wow. I think anyone reading this would let out a huge sigh of relief at that.
Yeah, it's a vital caveat. The goal is sincerity. It requires every part of life, public, private, sacred, and ordinary, to be yielded.
So what does this all mean? The document uses some deeply uncomfortable imagery here. It says, a life must be turned again and again by God's hand and exposed to his refining fire.
It sounds intense, yeah.
Very intense.
Yeah.
How is the listener supposed to apply this? How does the text say a person should respond when their raw areas are exposed? Like, if I realize I suffer from the audience divide, what do I do?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text demands repentance rather than indifference when inconsistency is revealed.
Okay, break that down.
Well, when you realize you're half-baked, the indifferent response is to just shrug, slap a bun on the burger to hide the raw side, and pretend everything is fine.
You protect your ego. You refuse to let the raw side touch the grill because it hurts too much.
Precisely. But the text argues for repentance. It means actively submitting to the discomfort of being turned, looking at the gap between your Sunday ideals and your Monday reality, and instead of making excuses, bringing that failure into the light.
Allowing the raw side to face the heat.
Yes, and the text offers a really hopeful conclusion here. The believer must bring their raw, burned, neglected, or overexposed areas to the Lord, because the God who sees the condition is also the God who restores and makes whole.
Yeah, it's not a punitive punishment. It's an invitation to wholeness.
Exactly. The refining fire is designed to burn away the hypocrisy,
Yeah.
not to destroy the person.
It's a massive journey we've been on today, moving from a ruined half-baked burger on a grill all the way to the ancient kingdom of Ephraim.
Yeah, quite the leap.
And finally, arriving at the very modern human tendency to live divided, compartmentalized lives, the Sunday faithful who are Monday secular. As a quick reminder to you, our listener, while we have fully explored the source's plea for a wholly devoted life, our goal was to extract the philosophical and theological insights of the text.
Right, just looking at the mechanics of the argument.
Exactly, leaving it entirely up to you to decide how it resonates with you. But I do want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on the source's metaphor.
Okay.
The text focuses on faith. But think about the cake of your own life right now. Are there areas, maybe your career, your relationships, or your personal values, where you are overcooked and burning out from performing for others, leaving your private, authentic self completely raw and neglected?
That's a great question.
What would it take for you to finally flip the cake?